I had been very ill with TWAR, a bacterial lung disease, for about a year when this happened. I could walk or be active for only about 10 minutes. I had a fever for 3 weeks. I was always exhausted and it was difficult to breathe. I had the constant feeling of suffocation. It scared my wife how I sounded when I was sitting and sleeping. It became less stressful to sleep sitting up in my own room. My professional life up until then had been working with psychotherapy, crises, supervisors, among other things, in hospice, healthcare, social services, etc. Coming from an upbringing when there was a lot of death around me, this experience laid the foundation for a lifelong interest in the research of NDEs. I read a lot on the subject and attended lectures, etc. I wondered what it's like to die and what happens next. It may feel like I knew a little how it will turn out. One October evening about 10 years ago, despite medication, I couldn't breathe. In the panic that followed, I took the wrong medicine and my breathing stopped. I panicked because I couldn't call for help. It was the scariest moment of my life. Then I felt my heart stop beating. There was complete silence in my chest and I gave up. Everything became still. I was completely mesmerized by a giant face starting to appear on the ceiling. It smiled lovingly and warmly at me. It sank towards me or I floated up towards it. I don't know which it was. Suddenly, I was in a vibrating, vivid, incredibly bright landscape. It was brighter than anything I've ever experienced. I experienced a sense of home that was of such magnitude it is impossible to explain. It was as if my whole life had been a dream and I had woken up from it. Everything was so much more real and home-like. I had come home and I was so happy. Even that is impossible to explain. How do you describe a happiness that is 1,000,000 times stronger than when you had your first child? It doesn't work in human language. I felt filled with everything. In connection with that, there was a figure of light who was so bright that I couldn't see the facial features. He knew everything about me. By that I really mean everything. He knew the ugliest thing I had thought and the nicest thing I did. He knew it all. Yet I felt loved. He asked what I had done with my life. Then everything that happened in my life was replayed. I lived it again. Since I was 57 years old at the time, it was 57 years that passed in an instant. I got to see every moment from my perspective and also from the other person's perspective. It was excruciating at times, and I felt a great pang of selfishness and self-absorption from me. Despondent, I said I had failed. But the light figure said, with an almost humorous warmth in his voice, nothing was wrong. Everything was perfect, as it should be. He said that I was human, and as such, it is not possible to do everything right. That love and its consequences mean everything. I was so liberated and happy. Then he asked me if I had any questions. I asked about war, environmental destruction, evil, and everything I have reflected on during my life. As the questions went along, it was as if I changed. I understood more until it felt like I understood everything, which was that everything is as it should be. Everything will be fine. I understood that it is so. It was like I swelled, got bigger. Everything was getting brighter. My experience is that we had endless time together. Everything was eternal. Then he told me that I was going back and I'd get well. Until then, I had thought nothing of my family or children. Then it was like being sucked through a narrow tube at extreme speed. I was lying in my body in the fetal position. The sun shone in through the blinds. I had the happiest morning I have ever experienced. I ran happily down to my wife, as I felt that now I must tell everyone how it really is. Everything will be fine. My wife was sad when she realized what had happened. She was not happy like me. After a few confusing weeks, I started to learn what I know now. That even if I know how it will be, it cannot be explained. It's like describing a destination, but only getting to use 2 letters in the story. It has been extremely difficult to live with at times. Now 10 years have passed, I am permanently changed by the experience. Part of who I was there in the light remains. So I'm like a double exposure, an eternal self that knows, and an ordinary person like you. So I do like most others who have experienced this, try to show a little of the love that was my home in eternity. I try to help others become a better person, and for me to be a better person, but I know that everything will be fine in the end. Nothing in my experience was what I thought I knew before. I didn't realize how incredibly big the difference in reality here and there really is. I also didn't understand what it's like when time no longer exists. I didn't realize what it's like to be completely loved and to swim around in love. But it doesn't matter. Everyone ends up there in the end.